Okay, we are live, and the captioner can start now.
Okay, thank you. I'll call to order the Williamsport City Council meeting of Thursday, July 9th, 2020. We're meeting remotely again via Zoom in Williamsport, PA. Before we get into the regular agenda, we're going to adjourn to go into executive session to discuss labor negotiations related items. So we'll be leaving the live meeting for a brief period of time, and then we'll re-adjourn when we're out of the executive session. Okay. Are we out of the live meeting, Chris?
Well, you're gonna switch over to the other meeting, so you guys can all just drop off.
Okay.
Why does this say this is currently streaming live?
Because we never turned it off. This is the other meeting.
Hello, all.
Why does this say this is currently streaming live?
Because we never turned it off. This is the other meeting.
There's a 30-second lag on this, right?
There is. And I had the volume up for both of them. Captioner, we're back in the regular meeting, so you can caption now.
Are we live?
We are live, sir.
We'll reconvene the Williamsport City Council meeting.
Mrs. Katz is still coming in if you want to wait
Okay.
1 minute.
There she is.
Everyone looks like they're good.
Okay, we're all present now. It's roughly 7:12 and we're reconvening from executive session. And we'll begin with our regular agenda of the Williamsport City Council meeting for Thursday, July 9th. Item number 1, approval of city council minutes dated 6/25/20 and 6/30/20. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions, corrections, anything from council tonight? Hearing none. Mrs. Frank, on the motion, please.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Alice.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We'll go to item 2, limited courtesy of the floor. We've had no requests tonight. I'm now going to move to item number 6. We're going to move that up in the agenda. And would you read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
Resolution agreement for economic analysis services between city and kapur company.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second by council. And Mr. Pavlak, welcome tonight.
Good evening. The resolution before you is to enter into an agreement with the Kapur Company for economic analytics services. This proposal is being brought before you at the recommendation of our Labor Council, who's representing the city's interest in the in coming scheduled Act 111 interest arbitration, along with negotiations with other collective bargaining units. Labor Council strongly suggests and recommends involving the Kapur Company to present the city's economic condition and the impact that the union's request and how our request will impact the city's future. In addition to assisting with any arbitrations or negotiations, the mayor firmly believes that the information that will be provided on the economic condition of the city may be valuable to council in the upcoming budget preparation. So with that said, we're recommending this move forward, and we're proposing the funding to come from the legislative contingency line. And we've also discussed, the mayor's discussed with the Kapur company, the anticipated cost for these services. And I believe that we've agreed to an amount not to exceed $16,500, which is written into the resolution. The mayor's invited Vijay Kapur, president at the Kapur company, so he can assist with any questions or additional comments related to his services.
And Pat Harvey is with us as well.
Great.
Finance reviewed this on Tuesday.
Yes, reviewed by finance. Ms. Mealy?
Yes, this was reviewed by the Finance Committee and forwarded to the full body of council with a positive recommendation. Given the extensive amount of discussion we've had over the last several months about the impact of COVID-19 on the city's budget, and how to measure and how to begin to adjust for the impacts that the COVID crisis will have on the city's budget, even in the absence of any upcoming contract negotiations. And as we know, we're looking at fire, police, and River Valley Transit coming up here in the course of the next year, or before the end of this year, ideally. This sort of investigation might be a wise idea one way or the other, but especially given that we have 3 contracts coming up and that this information might be useful for those contracts, we recommended this with a positive recommendation from all 3 members. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Other comments or questions from Finance Committee members? None. Mayor Slaughter, did you have anything to add?
No, just that Mr. Kapur could speak for a brief moment here, and we will be able to utilize it as well as during, as we review the budget with our upcoming budget session here in the fall. So Mr. Kapur did agree that even outside of the contract, we'd be able to, update and be flexible working documents. So maybe Mr. Kapur just give a very brief overview, kind of what the economic impact analysis would cover.
Right.
Sure. Mayor, thank you very much. And thank you all for the opportunity to be here. You all may not know this about me as well, but I'm also currently a city council member in Asheville, North Carolina. I'll be moving back to the Pennsylvania area. I can tell you right now, this is obviously a very difficult time to be a council member. We are struggling down here with the same issues that you all are struggling with, which is to how to understand the economic impact of COVID-19 on your city's economic situation. And as most of you know, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. As the mayor indicated, what I typically provide in terms of my services is a high level and as well as a granular analysis of many third-class cities' economic conditions. And we typically do those obviously for labor negotiations. And we work with your community to basically help individuals and help arbitrators and help unions as well as advocates understand the city's economic condition. In terms of what I will, in terms of why I think this is important, and I think the mayor indicated this as well, is that much of my analysis in terms of looking at your economic condition, which let's be frank right now, is quite uncertain. And I think most of us realize that the downside is quite more significant than the upside in terms of what will likely happen over the next couple of months. It's very helpful in terms of being able to provide this information not only for your own use in terms of making your budget decisions and your financial decisions, but also in terms of communicating with the public, communicating with your employees. Because again, depending upon where, how the economics shakes out on this, many of us are facing some pretty significant decisions that we need to make. And I'm happy to talk with you specifically about what those presentations may look like. I know Mr. Harvey is also here on the phone as well, and can kind of talk about how I'm typically utilized within the labor negotiations context. But I think all cities right now, again, are trying to figure out exactly where their economic situation is. I work with a lot of third-class cities just by way of information for you all. Work with the city of Allentown, Bethlehem, Chester, Easton, Lancaster, York, a variety of third-class cities, and I'm in contact with a lot of them as well. So a lot of my analysis also is reaching out to other third-class cities and understanding kind of where their economics are. We've had a lot of conference calls over the past couple of months, monitoring EIT, monitoring real estate transfer taxes, and obviously every city is unique. But I think bringing that information not only for the arbitration presentation, but also to help you all with your budget is something I would be happy to do, and is something that I would consider to be just part and parcel of the work that I would provide. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview. Happy to answer any specific questions that any of you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kapur. Questions tonight from council? I don't see any. I just had one. I couldn't show up for the finance committee meeting the other day to hear some of the details they discussed. Just a brief question about the analysis that you do. Is it structured solely for us, or does it give us some kind of comparison to other communities like us, or some picture of where we stand in relation to that?
Sure. Yes, sir. So in terms of the economic analysis, what I'll be looking at kind of at a high level is specifically looking at Williamsport's economic situation, and also providing some context both statewide as well as with respect to other third-class cities in terms of what's going on with some of your some of the economic factors. Where I think it's very valuable, another part of the presentation I do with respect to comparisons is I look at a compensation analysis with other third-class cities. So as part of this, I'll be conducting a compensation analysis with other third-class city fire departments, and that will all be part of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
Yes,
I see no other questions.
Well, Randy, I just wanted to say thank you for raising that point. I think that my understanding is that that's truly a key element, just an ability for ourselves to compare what we are offering to fire and police in the city to what other municipalities are offering around the country and around the state will make a big difference. Thank you, Mr. Kapur.
yes, ma'am.
So I hear no other questions or comments from administration or council. So Mrs. Frank will have the vote, please.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes, Janice.
Mr. Allison.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank, and thank you, Mr. Kapur, Mr. Harvey, and Mayor Slaughter, and Joe Hoblock for guiding us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Kapur.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a great night.
You too. Is Mr. Nar here?
He said he's trying to get back in.
He's joining right now.
Okay. As is our custom, when we have some other detailed items to go through. So we have 3 subdivision plan, a lot add-on, and a lot consolidation. So I'd like to move those up. We'd be moving items 11, 12, and 13 up next in the queue. Did you catch that, Mr. Nar?
No, I did not. Can you hear me now?
Yes. We're going to move items 11, 12, 13, your 3 items up next in line.
Okay.
Do you have, are people here for each one of those?
I did have them. I'm not sure whether they're still on or not. They were on.
I see somebody for UPMC, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, and that's Mr. Hoffman, correct? The Sallow Engineering was on.
Yeah, I see him.
It looks like Mr. Vasallo's on.
Yeah, he's here. Okay, well, let's go to item 11. A lot add-on for St. Luke's Evangelical Lutheran Church, 1408 Greenwood Grove Road. Mr. Nar?
Good evening, President Allison and members of council. What we're presenting you tonight is a subdivision request from St. Luke's Church. What they're requesting to do is subdivide that small parcel of property and add it on to the Mushino property. And it's just merely for access for them to drive. What that will do is give them access as off Blooming Grove. In addition, what it'll do is it'll take that small tax parcel and add it to the Mushinos, which will also give them obviously back on the tax rolls. It was reviewed by both planning and Lycoming County Planning, and they gave positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Nar. Is there a motion and a second from council on this?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions from council? I hear or see none. So we'll have the vote on that, please, Mrs. Frank.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Perot,
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We'll move to item 12, lot consolidation plan for 2606 Lynn Street. Mr. Nar.
What I present to you is a lot consolidation plan for 2606 Lynn Street, owned by Ken and Wendy Hunter. As you see, based off of the plans that I have provided to you, they have 3 parcels. One, they have a home on it, which is basically where they reside. And then there's 2 lots. Both of those lots are non-conforming lots. What this lot consolidation will do is bring it into 1 parcel and will alleviate 2 non-conforming lots, which is what zoning does prefer. At this point in time, like I said, it was reviewed by both planning as well as county with positive recommendation, and I can answer any questions at this time.
Is there a motion and a second on this from council?
So moved.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Nar, questions from council?
Mr. Yoder,
We'll have the vote.
All right. Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes. That motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. And we'll move to item 13, Mr. Nar.
What I present to you is a request to do a subdivision plan by UPMC Susquehanna. The property is located at 904 Campbell Street. What they're requesting to do is take the residual lot, which actually has the parking lot and basically an office building on it. What they're going to do is subdivide 1.73 acre lot so that the office building will be on 1 lot as with some parking, and the rest will be the residual. The residual lot will contain 4.17 acres with the existing parking, which is required for obviously the hospital. This is just merely the requesting to subdivide for the possibility of future development. This was reviewed by both council as well as, not council, but as Lycoming County Planning as well as city planning. The comments that you do have made from the county have been corrected, and I do have the updated plans. If council does approve this, at this point in time, the new plans will basically have the corrected information from the county recorded. And again, it was given with positive recommendation by both Lycoming County Planning as well as city planning. And I do have a representative here and can answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Nar. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions from council? Mr. Banks.
So, Mr. Nara, just to clarify, they're subdividing part of the parking lot to the east side of this subdivision map off of the hospital, and then they're consolidating the rest of it with the building?
Well, actually, no, what will actually happen is if you look north of Rural Ave is basically the building, which fronts Rural and Campbell, which is an office building, the medical office building to the north. In addition, it'll be the parking lot to the north of the hospital itself. What they're doing is subdividing off the building as well as some parking that will stay on its own. That'll be the new lot. And then the rest of the parking lot will be basically adjoined to UPMC property, which they currently have. And again, one of the reasons why they're looking at doing that is for a possible development or use of that building.
Thank you. The map was a little bit confusing because it was all in grayscale, so I appreciate you clarifying.
Mrs. Katz.
Is there going to be enough parking left for the office building? Because there are several doctors in there, right?
Yes, basically what the proposed plan is will provide adequate parking for what they're requesting to do.
Because at times it gets tight in there to begin with.
Correct. But again, it will, you know, if they do any further development, and currently at this point in time, it does have adequate parking for the current use as well as a proposed use.
Okay, because that is such a beautiful building to begin with.
I agree.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none on the motion, Mrs. Frank.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes,
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Thank you, Mr. Nar.
Thank you.
Mr. Allison, can I ask a quick question
Sure.
regarding actually the other end of that lot that just occurred to me? Mr. Nar, I know that lot, but that whole lot behind that building, all the way back to Walnut Street, must be kind of grandfathered in terms of landscaping, or has that changed recently? I'm trying to recollect. I know it didn't used to meet our landscaping requirements for parking areas.
Yeah, unfortunately, they had been grandfathered in because it's been there for such a long time. And again, if the property to the west, basically, which is the residual, which has the hospital, if they do change any type of use or anything like that, they would be required to meet, obviously, the landscape ordinance.
Got it, but nothing about this process.
Nothing on the other property. The only thing that I think we had made them do several years ago is when they put those coolant tanks in there at Walnut, is required to put some landscaping around it. But because they're grandfathered, we could not force them to do anything at this time.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Nunn.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move back up to item 3. Could you read item 3 in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
An ordinance adopting a 6-year capital budget project for the city of Williamsport for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2021 to June 30th, 2026.
26 or 25?
26.
Okay.
It's 26, Randy. I was thinking the resolution was wrong, but I hadn't gone back to verify that.
Yeah.
Did I have the resolution on?
Well, or excuse me, the agenda, it was on the agenda wrong. I didn't check your
The
resolution.
resolution does have 26.
Okay.
The ordinance does have 26.
But is there a
The
motion?
ordinance is right.
So moved.
Yeah. Second.
A motion seconded. Mr. Pavlak.
Before you is an ordinance to adopt the city's 6-year capital budget running through fiscal years 2021 through 2026. The budget that you have is broken into 4 sections. The first section is a status report. It gives an update on the previous year's budget. The next section is the proposed capital project budget, which goes through all projects in an individual line with their total funding sources. The third tab breaks it down even further to break each project into individual funding sources. And then the fourth tab has project narratives that were provided with information from the individual departments. This was reviewed on Monday by the Planning Commission, who gave a positive recommendation to bring to council. And then on Tuesday, due to some time constraints, the Finance Committee made it through most of the budget, but did not get through the final page of the proposed capital project budget. And I believe it was their thought, because of the time constraint that they had, that they would be able to review that more thoroughly if needed before the second reading in 2 weeks. So I believe my plan for going through this is how we've typically done it in the past, and we'll focus on the first 2 years of the budget, years ending 2021 and 2022, which are more of an action plan. And then the final the final 4 years represent items that we're looking into, but aren't quite ready to move upon. So with that being said, under the second tab, under the proposed capital project budget, I'll start with public services. Under the street improvements, in the first 2 years, plans include street resurfacing and rehab, Brick Street rehab, curb ramps, a Newberry Trail connection, lights on initiative, and street trees, for a total in year one of $1,037,000 and year two of $985,000. Under the second grouping, storm sewers, categories include separation of storm sewers, the Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan, and Graphius Run. In year one, the total is $4,695,000, and in year two, $325,000. A majority of that first year budget relates to Graphius Run, where we've submitted a grant, I believe, to DEP. We're still waiting to hear back on any award to that. But that is a project that we're hoping to get started in the next year. And I think it's a project that's on everyone's minds here on council and in that area. The next section, flood control, includes categories of pump station structure and equipment repairs, drainage structure repairs, and the levee improvements, for a total in year one of $2,689,000 and year two of $3,425,000. A main portion of that is the work that was approved earlier this year, or the grant submission that was approved earlier this year for the EDA 2019 disaster funds. There was a grant submitted here in June for that, so we'll await notice of receipt of that grant, or see if we have to explore other funding sources potentially. Would you like me to complete the public service section, Mr. Allison?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, then going to page 2 under recreation, projects include Lowe's Park, Bowman Field, the Brandon Park Band Shell, and Shaw Place Park, for a total in year one of $1,399,000 and year two of $525,000. And then a miscellaneous grouping for equipment and facility roof replacements, for a total in year one of $220,000 and in year two, $215,000, for a total year one budget for public services projects of $10,040,000 and year two of $5,475,000.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlak. I'll just, for a second, defer to Ms. Mealy in finance since this was reviewed. Was there anything you wanted to?
We reviewed, we did not make it to the public safety segment. Given that we had several items on finance that were timely for this particular meeting and this had a second reading, we decided that we would defer some elements of this if we were going to run over time. It took us a little while to get online on Tuesday, so we were late getting the meeting started. That said, we had some discussion related to Graphius Run, to making certain that the potential earmark that I believe we'd all understood might be moving through the process in the state we should certainly be keeping an eye on that. And it was, I believe, Penn Strategies that was working on that initially. We had, and as we know, because of the pandemic, we've had some, we've put some of our consultants on hold. So that, bears some thinking on. We also had some discussion about the levy improvements and the extent to which those were actually a go for the upcoming 2-year period. Most of that funding is in place. Not all though. Aside from that, we won't hear, I believe, until sometime around November about the funding for Lowe's Park. So, we know that the capital budget, capital projects budget in the first 2 years, generally speaking, is slightly more likely to happen. But we are still, as we remind everyone every year, looking at a bit of a wish list. These are projects that we'd like to see come off. The ones in the years that are closer to us may possibly occur, are likely to occur. The ones in the out years, we have no idea. And it all depends on whether or not the funding proves to be in place when we get there. I would, of course, mention that in particular related to the big ticket item under public safety in this budget, which we didn't talk about at finance, but the $15 million for the public safety building in 2021, 2022. It is very important for the public to understand that we don't have that money. and that, not that it's not a project that we're working on. That's why it's in the upcoming 2 years. But just because it appears in the capital projects budget does not mean that it will come to fruition. I think we've actually had that line item in that spot there for, at least 6 or 7 years that I can recollect out of the last few. But Randy, maybe you have a better memory for it than I do.
We've definitely had it on the radar.
Yep. So that said, the Finance Committee did forward it to the full body of council with a positive recommendation, but bearing in mind that we haven't given it the close scrutiny that we would have liked to because of time constraints in our meeting. And that we will be happy to revisit it at the next meeting before the second reading.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. So the rest of the Finance Committee or all of council comments on this last section or any part of the capital budget. Mr. Palizzi?
Yeah, so we were reading down through this and jump in here at any time. So we're looking at 2020 to 2021, $4.345 million for Graphius Run. Those grants were submitted, but we do not have that funding. Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge. I have not heard of any award.
So
Vince,
that
I can clarify. They actually are not. It's not a grant application that was submitted. I believe my understanding was it was a potential earmark of some new state funding, and I'm sure it's pretty hard to say at this point exactly what is funded through the state and what's not, given the pandemic. But it wasn't quite as straightforward as a grant application that got submitted and will at some point be rejected or be awarded.
Okay. So I'm curious here. So we've got $4.3 million for Graphius Run and 2.5, almost $2.6 million for the levy. And Penn Strategies has been the one working on getting most of this grant money for us. Is that correct?
Now, Penn Strategies was involved with Graphius Run. And
You said was, or does that mean they're not involved anymore?
no, they were the ones that were initiating that project. I'm sorry, that came across incorrect, but Penn Strategies is working on and started the process with Graphius Run and the program that they're proposing to go through for that, earmarking some funds. For the levee improvements, that is Thomas Keller Associates, who have submitted the grant applications, and I believe that they're also working with the county on projects related to the levee that are being run through the county.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Mr. Pavlak.
I was just going to say they just recently, I believe here in July, completed an application that was submitted, or I'm sorry, in June, submitted an application related to a levee project. And I believe that was the INT walls improvements
Who did,
to
Mr. Pavlak?
What's that?
I said who did? Did Thomas Keller?
Thomas Keller Associates, correct.
Okay, they're working on behalf of the county?
The city has an agreement with, I'm sorry, I'm not exactly, I don't recall who engaged them. I think we have some financial contribution towards that, but I don't recall who the contract is through. If
So
it's
that
through the
was
city or through the county. And
It's
we,
with the
Councilwoman
it's with the
Chapman.
county.
Yeah.
It's with the county.
Okay. Do we know how soon we're going to have Penn Strategies back working on some of these current grant applications that they were working on before COVID hit?
I've not had discussions with the mayor on that topic.
Okay,
We can discuss that.
sure. All right. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes, just got news with the governor's capital budget that, and I talked to the chief about this, in the governor's capital budget, there is, Penn Strategies was able to get $10 million put in for the public safety building. So we're excited about that. And I know nothing is in the plans yet. There's no plans or anything else. But to realize that there could be money down the line for a public safety building, I think is exciting. And $10 million is a lot of money.
That's a nice round number for sure. Other questions about any other parts in the, Mr. Mackey, welcome tonight.
Thank you. This is obviously maybe a conversation to have at a later date, but I just think I would like to point out that we are allocating $50,000 for about 0.6 miles of brick streets. I understand there's a lot of nostalgia tied into those brick streets, but I just think it's something worth having a discussion about here in the near future, because I honestly have never talked to anybody that actually enjoys driving on those streets.
And Mr. Mackey, you've never talked to me.
I very rarely see you driving.
I don't.
Oh, John, did you open up a can of worms?
I don't need
That's
to be
why-
fearful about it right now, but I'm happy to do it at some point offline because
Sure.
I don't need to bore the entire population of Williamsport with my opinion on it right now. But not that I have anywhere near the hubris to think that the entire population of Williamsport is currently listening. But anyway, I'm happy to expand on that for you at some other point.
As I said, this is a conversation to have at a later date. I just thought it was an important fact to put out there. It's a significant amount of money for less than a mile of street.
That is true, and I can give you my opinion on it at some point later. Thank you.
I think we budget 50,000 every year. Some years that isn't spent. in the maintenance that needs to be done. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be a good discussion item. Any other questions on Mr. Banks?
Yes, I just want to ask Ms. Young about the Shaw Place Park, 500,000 budget for next year's budget. What plans do you have in mind for Shaw Place Park?
Shaw Place Park is not CDBG eligible. So Young's Woods, I think, is the park that we were planning to do after Lowe School Park.
Okay.
And that just, Young's Woods just needs a little bit of TLC. It needs a new pavilion, some landscaping, some lighting, pathways. We actually looked at that and wondered whether to go ahead with Young's Woods or Lowe School Park. And we decided that Lowe School Park would be the priority and then Young's Woods would be second, but Shaw Place is not CDBG eligible.
No, it's listed under Act 13 DCNR for the following year's project. I was just wondering if there's actually a plan in mind for that park, or that's just the kind of the wish list.
I think with all the parks, we're looking at some, any ADA improvements. The inclusive playground is something that we've looked at Lowe's Park, but any, lighting, pathways, landscaping, pavilions.
ADA ramps at Lowe's. And for Shaw Park, Councilman Banks, there's been some discussion at Rec Commission meetings as well. As you know, there's a lot of space out there. And so, but as Ms. Young said, it's not CDBG eligible. So, we'd have to look at various funding streams. But yeah, I think Shaw Park has the opportunity to do some nice things, some nice improvements out there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Lizzie.
Yes. Have we had our consulting firms look to see what other grants there may be available for fixing up our parks? The reason I ask is because I've heard specifically Penn Strategies mentioned to me about a Greenway grant that does a 15% match. Is that something that we've looked into at all?
The GTRP?
You'll have to elaborate on the acronym.
Greenway Trails Recreation. I'm not exactly sure the acronym for it, but that's the one that we use for Memorial Park for the inclusive playground that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've utilized that before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we looking to go after that for any of these other parks coming up here?
Well, the one for Memorial Park is an active grant. In fact, we just did the very first drawdown on that one. And then we put in to DCNR for Lowe School Park. So we tend not to just tax these funding sources until we've received word that whether or not we're going to get an award. So, we'll wait to hear about Lowe School Park. And then, we're currently working with DCED on Memorial Park. So I think until we can get those two going, we'd probably not put any other grant applications because those are the two main sources, and we're already engaged with trying to secure at least the funds for Lowe School Park. We already have it for Memorial Park.
Thank you, Ms. Young. That's all I have.
When we look at Young's Woods, of course, we're going to look at accessibility issues and all of that, obviously in the plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a requirement of DCNR. I mean, that's the very first thing that they look at is are you doing accessibility improvements? Are you meeting the ADA standards?
Mm-hmm. Good. Ms. Mealy, did you have a comment?
I did I had a quick question about, and I've asked this before, and Stephanie, you've given me an answer, and I can't quite remember. We generally speaking submit an application for funding from DCNR in the amount of about anywhere between $180,000 and $250,000 annually. And we only submit one application, and my assumption is that we consider ourselves likely to only get funded for one application annually at best.
I think it depends on how much we're asking for. We had Ways Garden and Brandon Park kind of going from DCNR at the same time. However, they were different funding sources. Brandon Park was land and water conservation funds. DCNR was conservation partnerships funds from the state. The land and water funds is federal. So there were two different funding streams, but typically we only put in one application, especially if we're asking for 250,000. Ways Garden, we got 90,000. So between the two different funding sources and the amounts, Brandon Park was 250,000. So we did have those going simultaneously, but typically we ask for 250 from DCNR, and we kind of wait until that grant cycle has passed before we apply again.
Got it. The reason that I'm asking is that I know that there are a handful of arms of that DCNR grant process that comes due in April. And just in discussing things with a couple other council people, I'm sort of wondering if we might not be able to try not to conflict with our parks applications, but perhaps look at some funding related to Graphius Run from the same pot, especially if we were looking to do something like daylight a portion of Graphius Run or something like that. Anyway, all of that I think is just to say that when the administration is pursuing the application process for DCNR and perhaps for GTRP next year, I wouldn't mind being included in the discussion, just so that if there is an opportunity for us to try and go after two different arms of the same funding source, and maybe get some funding for Graphius Run built in there, that might be kind of a cool thing if we can make it happen. And if we don't, we don't. Ms. Young, I know that you have fond hopes of not being here next year when we go after the funding for DCNR. Derek, if you could try and bear that in mind with whoever Stephanie's, with whoever comes after Stephanie or whoever's submitting applications for DCNR, I think that perhaps we would have a shot at getting some land acquisition money or something else through DCNR simultaneously without buggering up our chances of getting money for Shop Liz.
Sure, we can keep you included in that conversation. Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Other questions tonight? Mr. Banks.
Well, just a comment really, Graphius Run is going to become the new levy project for the city, it'll be kind of our glamorous new project. And if we can attack it from as many different funding sources as possible, Councilwoman Mealy and I have talked on numerous occasions, and this is long before my time on council, about daylighting. And it would be a great project. It would be ambitious, but it could be quite something if we were able to pull it off. But we'd have to hit it from multiple funding streams. So it's something we should just keep in mind going forward.
It's interesting. That would be a fascinating concept to look at in itself. Okay, anything else? Hearing and seeing none. Mrs. Frank, on the capital budget motion, please.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
You're muted.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We will move to item 4. Would you read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
Resolution to adopt amended citizen participation plan.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Thank you. Mrs. Young, good evening.
Good evening. Yes, this resolution amends the citizen participation plan that council approved in December 2019. Because of the COVID-19 situation, HUD has suggested that we add language to the plan stating that in the event of an emergency, public hearings will be handled virtually via conference calls or by live streaming. The amendment was available for the public to review and to comment on from July 1 to July 9, and this was reviewed by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. Ms. Mealy, Finance.
Ms. Young is accurate. This was reviewed by the Finance Committee with very little discussion and forwarded within the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments from council tonight? I hear none. Is anybody having trouble hearing me tonight?
You're very soft-spoken.
Other than that,
No.
I can get louder. Okay. We'll have the vote, please, Mrs. Frank.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Allison.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Motion passes 7-0. We'll now move to item 5. And would you read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
Resolution to approve a CARES Act amendment to the 20.
Okay, I think that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mrs. Young again.
Yes, the city's been notified that it will receive CARES Act funding in the amount of $609,271. The CARES Act funding is Community Development Block Grant funding, known as CDBG-CV, that must be used to prevent, prepare for, and respond to the coronavirus. In order to receive the grant contract for this funding, the city must prepare an amendment to the most recently approved annual action plan. HUD is still reviewing the 2020 annual action plan and has recommended that we amend the city's 2019 annual action plan to account for the CDBG-CV funds. The CDBG-CV funding must adhere to the CDBG requirements of benefiting persons in a low to moderate income range and be used to address COVID-19 pandemic. Funding also must not be a duplication of benefits, and it's intended to be used as gap funding. We're proposing to allocate $559,271 to public service activities. Local nonprofits that benefit a low to moderate income population will be given an opportunity to apply for the funding, similar to the process that takes place during the development of the annual action plan. The organizations that are selected for funding will enter into a subrecipient agreement with the city. We're also proposing to allocate $50,000 to a microenterprise loan program for COVID-related projects. This program's been in existence in the city since 1997. It's different from the COVID business loan program that the city recently approved. The microenterprise loan program provides credit for establishment, stabilization, and expansion of a microenterprise. Microenterprise is defined as a business that has 5 or fewer employees, including the owner. And to qualify for the program, the owner of the microenterprise or a minimum of 51% of its employees must meet HUD's low to moderate income levels, which are based on family income. The microenterprise must be located within the corporate limits of the city of Williamsport. The terms of the CDBG CV funded micro enterprise loan program will be the same as the existing program. Loans are offered at a 3% interest rate over a 10-year term. The first year of payment is deferred and the 10-year repayment period begins after the deferment. The maximum loan amount per micro enterprise is $10,000. As required by HUD, the CARES Act amendment was available for public review and comment from July 1 to July 9. And this was reviewed by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mrs. Young. Ms. Mealy, Finance.
Yes, this was reviewed by the Finance Committee and forwarded to the full body of council with a positive recommendation. Most of our discussion revolved around the $559,000 allocated to be dispersed to area nonprofits. Most of that was driven by me. I just wanted to make certain that we thought that that was the best possible use of that funding, that there wasn't anything that the city itself wanted to do with the funding. Ms. Young assured us, however, that if we do, the plan is to do at least 2 phases, basically, of allocation of this CARES Act funding, such that if at some point we come to the conclusion that the city itself can do, can or should utilize a portion of the funding to do some of the work that we feel would benefit the community post-COVID, we'd be in a position to do that. And that she does not believe that there would be, that it would be a huge undertaking to change the scope of our goals for the funding with HUD. So that is to say, this is the path we've currently decided on. It seems like the wisest path at the moment. But we will not be handing out $559,000 between now and the end of the month or anything, and then look at ourselves and say, man, we wish we'd hung on to some of that. We could have done this with it. So as I said, we forwarded it to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Mealy. Comments or questions from council tonight? I hear and see none. Thank you, Mrs. Young. It's a great program, and I think it's going to be used judiciously, which is good. We don't know. There's a lot of unknowns out there for COVID and economics going forward. So we'll just be as prepared as we can, and this is a nice addition to that. Hearing no other comments on the motion, please, Mrs. Frank.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
You're muted, Liz.
Sorry, Randy. Yes, Janice.
Mr. Allison.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We already did item 6. Move to item 7. Could you read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
Resolution amending an agreement for 2020 labor and employment legal services for City of Williamsport.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion and a second?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Pavlak.
This resolution is to amend a resolution that was adopted earlier this year with Campbell Durant and others. The Campbell Durant firm represents us in our labor negotiations and in any interest arbitration that we may get into related to the collective bargaining agreements. With the potential of an upcoming Act 111 interest arbitration, we're requesting to increase the budget by $10,000 so we won't disrupt their progress if things proceed to that arbitration. So with that, the funding will be at the top of the budget for the hearings and litigation line item, and we're asking for your approval to increase the amount. This was reviewed by Finance on Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlak. Ms. Mealy, Finance, is she available? If not, Mrs. Katz.
Yes, this was discussed at Finance. And we have been using Campbell, Durant, and Beatty, Palumbo, Miller. God, there's a lot of names for quite some time. We're very happy with what they accomplished. And everything that's going to be going on with all of our contract negotiations. I think this is, we discussed how this is going to be needed, and this was passed on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Comments, questions from council tonight? Mr. Paludi.
Yeah, just curious as to where this additional funding would come from.
As indicated in my cover memo, the hearings and litigation line item, which is in the mayor's department, account 79030. The previous resolution also is, or the resolution I did earlier had that same account. And as indicated, I think during that presentation, we were looking to transfer the money down from the legislative contingency line to round out the necessary funding for both agreements.
Other questions tonight? Hearing and seeing none. Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
She's not available this moment.
Mr. Alice.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Or 6-0 rather. And we'll move to item 8. Would you read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank?
Resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2020 Ram ProMaster 1500 cargo van with HVAC uplift.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's Mr. Winder. Welcome tonight, Mr. Winder.
Good evening. This resolution is to purchase a 2020 Ram ProMaster 1500 cargo van with upfit. The upfit is to allow Jordan Philman, who is the heating and cooling expert that we have here at RVT, allow him to haul his tools and all the proper equipment amongst his travels to different buildings for those issues. He currently uses a very old, I think it's a Dodge Caravan that was taken out of service as a shuttle vehicle. It definitely does not suffice the needs that he has due to the extensive amount of equipment he needs for heating and cooling issues. The purchase of this vehicle would be through Apple Auto. With the upfit included, the total amount would be $43,093.50. Apple Auto is state contract pricing. In the packet with the resolution, we did reach out for a few extra quotes just to show that state contract pricing is definitely cheaper. We did try to purchase it locally. Unfortunately, local dealers are not state contract price. Mrs. Katz had a question during the Public Works meeting of how much of the local share would actually be contributed toward this van. The amount was $1,149, Mrs. Katz. And this was part of the CCA that was approved about a month ago.
Thank you, Mr. Winder.
Thank you.
This was reviewed in Public Works.
Yes.
Finance.
Oh, finance.
Public Works.
Was it public?
Yep.
Oh, it
Both of
was
mine went to
Public
Public
Works.
Works.
That's right, it was public, was it? Okay, anyhow, when we discussed this, the only changes, Adam, was the price on the resolution. You were
Yes,
supposed
ma'am.
to add on the 14,000.
Yes, in the back, you'll see a quote from Watson Diesel that was sent to us and also Apple Auto. To combine the total of the two, it came out to 43,000. And originally we were going to do it as two separate resolutions, but everybody agreed that we could just cut one check to the dealer for everything and hold the same price with Watson Diesel. So it just simplified things. And we had a clerical error when we put the resolution together, and we addressed that right away. Thanks to you.
So everybody realizes that the resolution price is not right in there. Other than that, it is Co-Stars. And it sounds like it's a much needed vehicle. And this was passed on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Questions from Council Knight? Hearing none. Mrs. Frank on the motion, please.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Alice.
Yes. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We'll move to item 9. If you'd read that in short form, please, Mrs. Frank.
A resolution awarding the 2020 contracts for street line terminus seal coating for the city of Williamsport.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion from council?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Winder.
This is our annual resolution through the West Branch COG. Different items are put out to bid. And the West Branch COG is a group of municipalities that come together and try to get the best possible price by putting all of their needs into one pot. Very similar to our aggregates that you approved earlier this year. This one is for the street line painting throughout the city and tar and chip essentially, which will cover quite a few alleys and also South Reach Road. The street line painting is the amount of $12,057.38. The tar and chip is $20,359.66. The street line painting was awarded to Mid-Atlantic Marketing Incorporated, and the tar and chip was awarded to Hammaker East Ltd. This is, like as I said, this is an annual thing. In the memo, you will see where it says the traffic line painting is funded through the general fund, but due to budget restraints, if council would like, we could actually use liquid fuels funds for that. Liquid fuels does cover the tar and chip already. So we do have options there for funding. And also I did send out a list of all the places that are getting seal coated. And this was reviewed by Public Works and passed on with a positive recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Winder. Mrs. Katz, Public Works. You're muted, Bonnie.
Bonnie, you're still muted.
You know, are we ever going to get used to this? Yes, this is something that comes to us every year. And if you notice, Mr. Winder always uses tar and chip. He never says bituminous. Sneaky Adam. Anyhow, like I said, this was passed on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation. It is something that comes to us yearly.
Mrs. Katz, comments tonight from City Council, questions? I have one, Mr. Winder. It's not directly related to this particular item, but since we're talking streets, I've noticed around the city, there's some cuts being made and work being done on streets that were recently paved. And one is West 4th Street that was a PennDOT job. What's going on there? Do you have a short form answer?
So I know UGI, the Water Authority, has had different issues with their lines, and they had to cut the street. I'll use Walnut Street for one prime example. It was paved last year. UGI did make cuts this year because they had issues with their connections. I wish Mr. Girardi was here because then he could definitely confirm this, but it is my understanding under the moratorium ordinance for the street that any cuts made within 5 years on that street, the contractor or utility company is required to pave full width, full block. So I do have Streets and Parks employees documenting every place that there's a cut on any fresh street, and we are passing them on to Dave Columbine, who will be the enforcing officer from the codes department to do the follow-up on that. There's Gary Narr. He may be able to answer the moratorium question.
That is correct. Under the moratorium, they are required to pave that full width. And again, we are aware of them. They do notify us that they have to go in as far as emergency cuts. And Dave Columbine has done the documentation as well. So we'll work with Streets and Parks and get that taken care of so that they'll be newly paved the full width.
Okay. I noticed a couple places that we trenched along the side of the street, and then and other ones that were on.
Can't hear you, Randy.
Pardon me?
Can't hear you.
Doesn't at all?
Now I can.
Okay. It doesn't show that I'm muted, but anyways, yeah, I noticed some streets that were trenched and also, significantly cut, but other ones that there were just the regular paved cuts for certain kind of work. So that's good. That's fine. That's a good answer.
I can give you another good example of how things just kind of pop up. Almond Street, we just paved that, and the day after we paved it, a sanitary lateral actually failed, and our new blacktop started collapsing in. So it's another one that, unfortunately for sanitary, but they'll have to do the full width and the length of the block.
Okay. Okay. I think we can take the vote then on the original motion, please, Mrs. Frank.
Mr. Yoder,
Yes.
Mr. Mack,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Mr. Banks,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Motion passes 6-0. We'll move to item 10 then. And if you would read that in short form, please.
resolution authorizing an agreement between the City of Williamsport and Mark Calderini.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Chief Killian, welcome.
Good evening, President
Good
Allen,
evening.
members of council. So before you is a resolution authorizing an employment agreement between the City of Williamsport and Mark Calderini for the position of Deputy Fire Chief within the Williamsport Bureau of Fire. Chief Calderini was chosen after an extensive nationwide search that's also entailed 2 job offers to internal candidates for the deputy chief's position in the Bureau of Fire who had turned the position down. So upon an external opening of the position, we received 31 applications nationwide. Myself and HR Director Chappelle, along with Chief Hagan and numerous members of our union, went through 3 separate interview processes to include phone interviews, Zoom interviews, excuse me, and then in-person interviews prior to Mr. Calderini being chosen as our new Deputy Fire Chief. Mr. Calderini comes to us with several decades of experience starting in the Pittsburgh area. He was a paramedic in the city of Pittsburgh, in addition to working in healthcare the healthcare industry in the Pittsburgh area before spending the last 20 years in Sarasota County, Florida, where he started as a firefighter, paramedic, in special operations, and advanced into a lieutenant's, captain's, and most recently a battalion chief's position in special operations and public safety communication. He has an extensive amount of experience in emergency management, staff training, research and development program and project management, safety and compliance, and urban search and rescue operations. He holds an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree of science in business administration, a bachelor's in public safety administration, and a master's degree in executive fire service leadership. He's also a nationally certified fire officer 4, hazardous materials technician, fire instructor 2, and paramedic, along with holding the chief fire officer designation from the Center of Public Safety Excellence. Chief Calderini will be assigned into a administrative position, non-union, as the deputy chief, and be responsible for day-to-day operations, fire department training, and the assistance with emergency management and upcoming strategic planning, and the accreditation process that the Bureau of Fire is going through. Chief Calderini has an anticipated start date of August 10th, if everything goes as hoped tonight with the agreement. And he comes to our area being semi-familiar with our area, as his wife has family here, so he's traveled to the city before, and he's actually visited the firehouse a few times over the past several years. So it's my pleasure and to present Mr. Calderini to you, to council, for consideration for this position. I think he's going to be an extremely valued member of our team and bring a tremendous amount of experience and background into the projects and the vision of our department moving forward. And this was reviewed by Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, Chief Killian. Mrs. Katz, Public Safety.
Yes, this was discussed and brought up at Public Safety. We did have a lot of questions, and several of the questions I'll bring up now. First of all, Chief, we did not have a bio on this gentleman. You were reading it off, but we didn't have any of that information given to us at all. It was interesting to hear what he's been doing, but it would have been nice to have it in our hands. He has come from a large department. From what I understand, you said at the committee meeting, department of 600 firemen. Am I correct in what you said in that?
That's correct. I should point out, though, that as battalion chief, under his direct supervision, there was approximately 35 employees, which is the same number, very close to the number we have here.
Because my question was, coming from a big department like that, you're coming into a small department and running a big department, and I take it this was in Pittsburgh. It's a big difference coming to Williamsport, which is a smaller venue all the way around. The other question that I didn't ask you, and you stated this at the meeting, at the committee meeting, that you asked a couple of firemen if they were willing to take this position. Did you post this job at all?
The position was not specifically posted internally because it's an administrative position with my direct report. It's kind of my responsibility to typically, and what has happened typically in the past is the fire chief, with approval of the mayor, has appointed their deputy chief. So we did have a couple internal candidates in discussion with them. And again, with the direction that our department is going with entering the accreditation process and strategic planning process, and specifically with the skills that are needed for this specific position with regards to department level training, developing, delivering, implementing our department level training program. The specifications for this position and what we were looking for were pretty specific. So people that held those within the department who I felt would be a good fit for the position were offered the position after an interview process that HR and I ran internally. After the two people that were offered the position declined, we decided to essentially have an open posting. So the position was open to anyone internal or external who met the requirements, that we laid out and the qualifications that we laid out for the position. And there were no internal applicants.
How does the complement of men feel about going outside to hire someone? Does this not affect morale? What is the perception?
So I think the perception is we need to find the most qualified person that we can to add value to our department. We have the best firefighters here that I've ever worked with across the country. But again, with that, we are looking for a specific skill set that is in tune with the direction of the department, specifically when it comes to accreditation, strategic planning, and training. And because of that, and because of the fact that we were very open and honest with the entire department, I have run a very transparent department. Everyone was well aware of our intentions and what we're doing going forward. And members of our department, multiple members of our department, took part in every step of the interview process, which is the first time, as far as I know, in the history of our department that's ever happened. We had three members of the department that sat in on the phone interview, 3 members of the department that sat in on the Zoom interviews, and these candidates were brought in on individual days, the 3 finalists, where the entire department was able to come and meet them, where they did a presentation, where all of our platoon officers were present in the final interview. So every single person, member of our department had the opportunity to come in and meet them and be part of the interview process. And I think that definitely has helped to negate any potential concerns for bringing in somebody from outside the department. I think there's a certain level of excitement with a lot of our folks in the perspective that, again, somebody with a great amount of experience in emergency services and background is going to bring in. There always may be frustrations from time to time, but that's going to happen regardless of whether somebody promotes to a non-union position from within the department or from outside of the department.
As you stated, this gentleman is opting out of the pension fund, and what you gave us is a contract for him, and the contract for him is 3 years, which I find interesting. We have a contract for the deputy chief, but we don't have a union contract. It's interesting. So the gentleman that you're hiring, we're hiring for a 3-year period.
So this is an employment agreement, not a contract, as outlined by our city solicitors. This was developed and run through Austin White as the solicitor. It's a 3-year employment agreement with an opt-out at any time by either party. So I would hesitate to call it a contract. He was pretty specific when he stated that it is an employment agreement. However, you are correct. He has chosen to opt out of the city's pension system. However, he will be receiving health care, under the terms of the employment agreement as any other, member of the department, along with the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. I'll defer to members of council.
Mr. Mackey?
Yeah, sorry if you already answered this question, but could you elaborate just again on the process as far as the internal candidates go? You said this was not posted. These were firefighters that were approached by you specifically to take the job, and they both turned it down?
Yes, sir, that's correct. So again, things have been, I'll say, inconsistent in the past with how the administrative appointments are made. And really our administrative positions are appointments by the mayor, and we historically have had 3 administrative positions. So I should, that's a point that I should bring up. In the department restructuring, we're going from a chief, a deputy chief, and an assistant chief and 30 line firefighters to a chief, deputy chief, and 31 line firefighters. My intention upon taking the fire chief's position was to get as many firefighters as I could in the line positions, because boots on the ground really are what make a difference on a day-to-day basis. So back to your original question. Once I was promoted and we established the deputy chief's position for what we were looking at candidate-wise, there was only a handful of candidates who met the needs for, again, the direction that we were going in the department and the specifics of what I need that deputy chief's position to do. So those candidates were approached individually, asked if they would be interested in interviewing for the position. We held an informal, I guess I would call it an interview process with some specific questions for each candidate we went through. Upon conclusion of that, we made job offers to 2 of the candidates, again, who turned the position down. And at that point, we made a determination to open up the application, the employment opportunity outside the department with, again, those specific requirements that we were looking for. Did that answer your question, Mr. Mackey? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions from council? I hear and see none. It sounds like a pretty thorough process you went through, Chief Killian. I commend you for that, and for doing all the hard work to bring this to pass, and restructuring the department somewhat. You're right. The more people we can get out there that are every day fighting the fire, the administrators like you have your hands full during a fire. If anyone else has ever had the occasion to be at one, there's a command post, and the chief and the deputy chief will be mighty busy. So it's good that we have a little bit extra there. I appreciate that. Mrs. Frank, we'll have the vote then.
Mr. Yoder?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
No.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
No.
Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes. Motion passes 4-2. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. Okay. That takes care of voting items. We'll move to item 14. Except for filing, Williamsport Water Authority minutes of 5/27/20 and Williamsport Sanitary Authority minutes of 5/27/20. Is there a motion and a second?
Move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions? Anything on these minutes? I see none. Mrs. Frank, on the motion then, please.
Mr. Yoder?
Yes.
Mr. Mackey?
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Katz?
Yes.
Mr. Banks?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes, motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mrs. Frank. I will make announcements. The next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be held not Thursday, July 9th, Thursday, July 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Upcoming meetings. Tuesday, July 14th, 4 p.m., the Ad Hoc City Hall. I believe this will be the third meeting, right, Mr. Yoder?
That's correct.
Wednesday, July 15th, the at 10 a.m. fire pension meeting. Thursday, July 16th at 10:30 a.m., the zoning hearing board. At 4 p.m., the Board of Health. Friday, July 17th, 11 a.m. ERC. We'll just leave that there for now. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a meeting. 12 p.m. housing needs. Tuesday, July 21st, 10 a.m. blighted property. 1 p.m. finance. 2:30 p.m. public works. We're missing public safety here, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we're missing public safety at 11, right?
11:30.
11:30. Okay. Public safety at 11:30. Public works at 2:30. 6:30 p.m. Harb. Wednesday, July 22nd, 11:30 a.m. Redevelopment Authority. Are there any comments from? I have to announce also that we're going to have an executive session after the meeting to discuss confidential public safety matters. Comments from council tonight. Mr. Yoder.
We okay? Janice, I think, has been having issues hearing me.
Yeah, you're better now. Yep.
Okay. So more of a general comment just about procedure, what have you. And I don't know what exactly happened or didn't happen. So I guess Elm Park was recently renamed. A constituent reached out to a number of us a couple of weeks ago about it. And I had checked with solicitors, and the renaming of any city property has to come before council. I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure for anybody involved that we're following proper procedure and what have you. I mean, we have rules, code, etc. for a particular reason. So I just want to make sure we're not going down a slippery slope. So a friendly reminder, if we're going down that path of various city properties, let's make sure that we're following our ordinances and the code and renaming them, and that it's open, transparent, and that there's ability for the public to offer comment in those procedures. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from council tonight? Seeing none. Comments from the administration.
President Allison, I just wanted, if I could, just follow up with the council and in reference to the June zoning hearing board denial at 305 Washington Boulevard.
Yes.
Basically, I wanted to follow up with that. The zoning hearing board did deny Hutchinson Development for putting the Dollar General there based off of setbacks as well as parking. They did deny that variance. I did want to inform council that they have redesigned the land development prospect of it. They will meet both setback as well as parking requirements, and they are going to continue to move forward with the Dollar General there. That will go before council for the land development phase, providing they meet the ordinance under the land development as well as stormwater. Then at that point in time, we will bring it back before planning as well as council for approval. They meet both of those. Again, they're redesigning it, making it smaller to meet parking needs, as well as moving the building up so that they would meet setbacks. When we do a land development plan, we do not do any advertisement to the public. It is not required. They will have to follow, those interested can follow as far as council's agendas when we do put it on. It's not like a zoning hearing board under the Sunshine Law where we're required to bring notice to the public. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Nar. Questions from council on that particular issue? I see none. So we'll keep our eyes peeled to follow that. Thank you, Mr. Nar.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I think that's all the comments from administration. So, Mr. Lubin, are there comments from the public tonight?
Yes, there are. We received 6 comments from Karen Koch, Jody Bainey, Tommy Greco, Misty Dion, Jay Harner, and Tima, T-I-M-A, Cummings, and one other. These 6 are all from 24 East 3rd Street and all have the same, or almost identical. And they're addressed to Council President Allison. July 26, 2020 is the 30th anniversary of the ADA. How will the city recognize this huge milestone? Possibly going forward with the ramp and other accessibility issues, as well as a proclamation to honor the 30th anniversary. 17% of the city does not have access to City Hall. First, we asked for public meetings to be moved. You said no, so we protested and were arrested. Then you moved the meetings. Then we asked for a ramp and accessibility to City Hall. You said no. Now thousands of dollars are being wasted on a federal lawsuit on something that is federal law. How much money has been wasted already on bids and now legal fees that could have been used to make City Hall accessible? The time is now 30 years is long enough. This council time after time talks about being fiscally responsible with the city's tax dollars. But yet time after time, this council has ignored, delayed, or pushed aside the matter of not being ADA compliant. How many times is council going to waste taxpayer money on bids, litigation, and other needed expenses because of council's lack of action? Commit today by placing on the agenda for the next meeting to give access to City Hall for 4,667 citizens of Williamsport by voting today on the bid for the ramp and committing to making the elevator accessible. This is the last option before the city is forced to do it anyway, and they will incur extensive legal fees. I am still waiting for a response from the mayor to explain how you will educate your staff that accessible parking is not for the convenience of able-bodied city and police employees. Shame on you. And then there was one additional comment, and this is from Thomas Adams Jr. of 900 Hollywood Circle, Williamsport. President of Council, thank you for the time. I have patiently waited for the City of Williamsport leadership to address the societal and financial fallout that will occur from COVID-19 following absurd rules and not continuing life as normal. The absurdity of placing a lien upon the people against their God-given unalienable rights and worry about death shows the all too real status of our city and county. By placing these liens on our people, the government has weakened the people physically, financially, and mentally. The circumstances that have been allowed to play out by the government will erode the foundational structure and leave our community open to more aggressive types of physical, financial, and mental attacks in the future. The city currently has a budget shortfall. The city will collect significantly less tax from 2020. How is it that the city believes it can improve the situation by placing liens upon individuals and businesses? Why not adopt a common sense approach to hold the oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution by way of allowing the free movement of all people within the city limits and placing no COVID-19 restrictions on the individuals or businesses? Remove the lien you've placed on people's rights and allow the people to live life. For if you live life in fear of death, you may as well be dead. But if you live life without fear of death, you are truly free. Ultimately, each individual knows best on how to protect oneself, and individually is what has given us strength. Let's get back to what we do best and live, be the land of the free and the home of the brave, and be strong. And that's the last one.
I've gotten a text asking, clarifying whether all those first ones were identical enough. Were they identical that they didn't?
They were all the same.
Okay. And of course, there's no comment. Anyhow, that's it for tonight. We will have our executive session, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Thank you, everybody, and we'll slip